Welcome to People Human Rights. This second video is about the balance of power. And we will study David and Goliath, but we are going to start with the Colonial Pact. Why? All those agreements between the countries which have been colonized and the countries which colonized other countries around the world. There are some agreements which first were called Colonial Pact. And we must know that the power of a word follows the thing that was, how can I say that? It follows with the time, everything that is made around it. So these agreements were first called Pact, Colonial Pact. But what is a pact? A pact is a solemn agreement, which means that it is made with a kind of spiritual power. And it has some rules, and if you want to break that pact you contracted, there are some consequences. Someone outside who didn't contract this agreement can break it with prayer, for example. So this is what is a pact. That is why people don't understand what is going on with all those presidents going on with former countries who colonized them with kind of strange agreements and always the same and nothing changes. Yeah, because it's just, they are just going to renew the pacts. And they present it in another way, they change the words, but it's the same thing. It's like a eco. The eco money is the same as the CFI. It's just another presentations. So when we fight physically against something, it is good to fight also spiritually with prayer, to be able to get rid of that thing which is not good. So the people of the human's homeland, they fight for their freedom, but they need to pray a lot and break those pacts who endangers them, which endanger them, which kill them, and so on and so on. So now I will read to you the story of David and Goliath. It's in the Bible, so it is 1 Samuel 17. So I will read only what we need. So 1 Samuel 17, we will read verses 1 to 12, then verses 32 to 37, then verses 43 to 52. Let's read this. Give me a few seconds. Okay. So, what does it say? Verses 1 to 12. Now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Succoth and in Judah. They pitched camp at Ephes-Dammim between Socoh and Azekah. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another, with the valley between them. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze, weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out on and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." Then the Philistines said, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Now, David was the son of an Ephrathite named Jesse, who was from Bethlehem in Judah. Now let's read verses 32 to 37. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned to me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Let's now read verse 43 to 52. The Philistine said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said, "and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistines' army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands. As the Philistines moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly towards the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. David ran and stood over him. He took hold of the Philistine's sword and drew it from the sheath. After he killed him, he cut off his head with the sword. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and ran. Then the men of Israel and Judah surged forward with a shout and pursued the Philistines to the entrance of Gath and to the gates of Ekron. Their dead were strewn along the Sharaim road to Gath and Ekron. When the Israelites returned from chasing the Philistines, they plundered their camp. 53, okay. So, this is the story of David and Goliath. It is to talk about the balance of power. So it is not always the strongest who wins. You have two sides here in battle. You have Goliath, who is a giant, but who is not very intelligent, but he has a deadly force. And there is David, a young man who was formed by his job of shepherd because he had killed many lions and many bears. He's not afraid, he's confident, and he has faith in his God. He has faith in the God of the armies. The God of his armies has always saved him when he was in danger. And that is what happened in this story, because David was also able to destroy, to kill that Philistine. So the people of the humans' motherland need to get their freedom back. So, which are the stones they are going to use to get rid of their oppressors? This will be the topic of our third video.